No man wanted the chained bride until a rancher's boy pointed and said, "That's my mama." The morning sun cast long shadows across Dustwater's main street as the crowd gathered in silence. Men shifted uncomfortably in their boots, women whispered behind gloved hands, and children peered between their parents' legs at the spectacle unfolding on the wooden platform. But this wasn't the usual scene anyone expected to witness on a Tuesday morning. In their quiet frontier town, Evangeline stood on the auction block with chains around her ankles, her dark hair falling in waves around her shoulders despite the restraints. The iron shackles told a story that made decent folks look away, but her eyes, those fierce green eyes, held a dignity that made others stare in wonder. She had been accused of theft, though many whispered the charges were false. Her husband had died 6 months prior, leaving debts that his creditors claimed only her sale could satisfy. The auctioneer, a thin man named Cornelius Pike, cleared his throat and began his practiced speech. "Gentlemen, we have here a woman of 26 years, able-bodied and skilled in household duties. The bidding starts at $50. Silence stretched like a taut rope across the gathering. Men studied their boots. Some spat into the dust. Others found sudden interest in the clouds overhead. $50 was a fair price for a strong horse. But no one wanted to be the man who bought a woman under such circumstances. It felt wrong, even in a time when such things happened more often than people cared to admit. $40 then, Pike called, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool morning air. "Come now, gentlemen. She's a fine woman, healthy and strong." Still, no hands rose. The crowd grew restless. Children tugged at their mothers' skirts, asking why the pretty lady had chains on her feet. Women shook their heads and turned away, their hearts heavy with the injustice of it all. From the back of the crowd, a weathered man in a dark coat stepped forward. This was Jeremiah Blackwood, the town's most successful rancher. His face was lined from years of working under the harsh sun, and his hands bore the calluses of honest labor. He'd lost his wife 3 years ago to fever, and since then, he'd been raising his 7-year-old son, Samuel. Alone, Samuel clung to his father's hand, his bright blue eyes wide with curiosity as he took in the unusual scene. The boy had his mother's gentle nature and his father's stubborn streak, a combination that often led to unexpected moments of wisdom from one so young. $30, Pike tried desperately, his voice cracking. "Surely someone will bid $30. The silence grew heavier, oppressive, like the air before a thunderstorm. Evangeline lifted her chin higher, and for a moment her gaze met Jeremiah's across the crowd. He saw something there that made his chest tighten, not defeat, but a quiet strength that reminded him of his late wife, Catherine. $25, the auctioneer pleaded. "This is highly irregular, but Papa." Samuel's small voice cut through the tension like a knife through butter. The boy had let go of his father's hand and was now pointing directly at Evangeline on the platform. "Papa, that's my mama." The crowd turned to stare at the child, confusion rippling through the gathering. Jeremiah knelt beside his son, his heart racing. "What did you say, Samuel?" "That's my mama," the boy repeated, his voice clear and certain. "She was in my dream last night. She was making biscuits and singing the song Mama Catherine used to sing. She said she was coming to take care of us." The words hit Jeremiah like a physical blow. Samuel had never spoken of dreams about his mother, and certainly had never claimed to see her in anyone else. The boy was practical and straightforward, not given to flights of fancy. Pike, sensing an opportunity, leaned forward. "Sir, if you're interested in bidding $100, Jeremiah said quietly, his voice carrying across the now silent crowd. Gasps rippled through the gathering. $100 was more than many men made in 3 months. It was enough to buy a small piece of land, a good horse, and supplies for a season. But Jeremiah wasn't thinking about money. He was thinking about the certainty in his son's voice and the way Evangeline's eyes had brightened when the boy pointed at her. "Going once," Pike called out, clearly relieved. "Going twice, 200, Jeremiah said, stepping forward through the crowd. Now the whispers turned to outright murmurs of amazement. Even Evangeline looked surprised, her green eyes searching Jeremiah's face for answers to questions she couldn't voice. "Sold," Pike declared quickly, before anyone could object or Jeremiah could change his mind. As the chains were removed from Evangeline's ankles, she rubbed her wrists where the iron had chafed. Jeremiah approached the platform while Samuel ran ahead, his small legs carrying him up the wooden steps with surprising agility. "Thank you," Evangeline said softly as Jeremiah helped her down from the platform. Her voice was like honey over gravel, sweet but weathered by hardship. "Don't thank me yet," Jeremiah replied. "You don't know what you're getting into." Samuel appeared at her side. slipping his small hand into hers as naturally as if he'd been doing it his whole life. "Will you make biscuits like in my dream?" he asked, looking up at her with hope shining in his young eyes. Evangeline knelt to meet the boy at eye level, her free hand gently touching his cheek. "What kind of biscuits did you see me making?" "The fluffy kind, with butter and honey. And you were humming Sweet Betsy from Pike." Jeremiah felt his knees nearly buckle. That had been Catherine's favorite song, one she'd hummed while cooking every morning until the fever took her. He'd never mentioned it to Samuel, certain the boy was too young to remember such details. "I know that song," Evangeline said gently. "My grandmother taught it to me when I was your age." As the three of them walked down the main street of Dustwater together, the crowd slowly dispersed behind them. Some folks shook their heads in bewilderment, others smiled at the unusual turn of events, but most simply went about their business, understanding that sometimes life brings people together in ways that can't be explained by logic alone. At the Blackwood Ranch, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Evangeline found herself in a kitchen that felt oddly familiar. Samuel sat at the wooden table, swinging his legs and chattering about his dreams while she mixed flour and water for biscuits. Jeremiah stood in the doorway, watching this woman who had been a stranger an hour ago seamlessly fit into their lives like a piece of a puzzle they didn't know was missing. When Evangeline began to hum Sweet Betsy from Pike as she worked, Samuel grinned and joined in with his small voice. Jeremiah closed his eyes and, for just a moment, let himself believe that sometimes miracles come disguised as auctions, and angels arrive in chains, freed by the innocent faith of a child who sees with his heart rather than his eyes. The biscuits turned out perfectly fluffy, just like Samuel had dreamed they would be.